Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. How many presidential ballots have you mailed off this week, Larry Porch?
Have we really got to talk about politics?
How you doing tonight, Larry?
Well, I'm doing good. Real good. I just don't want to talk politics and alienate half our audience. I'm not like a movie star.
Man, we got a great show tonight, and I cannot wait to present some of this evidence and listen to these encounter stories and the way that Jeff and Theresa go about their research. So why don't you just go ahead and let's get this ball rolling.
All right. We want to welcome to the show tonight Jeff and Theresa Yelek, all the way from Colorado. How are y'all doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having us on.
Well, we're really excited to have y'all on, and before we go deep into this, I would like to ask Jeff, you and Theresa, just to introduce yourselves and tell the audience about where you live or where you grew up or anything else that you would like to share with us.
All right, that sounds good. Well, I'm a native of Colorado, born here, and grew up not too far away from where we're at here in Loveland. Grew up on a farm along the Poudre River down in Windsor, and growing up near the river and all kinds of rocks. I'm a natural rock hound, always picking up rocks and putting them in my pocket, and grew up in Windsor up until the age of 10, and then we moved to Durango, Colorado, in the Four Corners area, and lived down there for about 4 years, and then I came back to the Loveland area and finished up my high schooling up through here, and then just been doing just different little odd jobs, and big hobbies are fishing, and then I got interested in treasure hunting. Been doing that for almost 28 years now, and it's really, it's fun. You're not going to get rich off of gold panning or nothing, but that's kind of our first experience getting us out into the hills. We'd go up gold panning all the time, and now we basically almost go to the same areas to do our research at, and let my wife tell where she's from.
Hi, I'm Theresa Yelek. Originally I'm from Maryland. I was moved out to Colorado when I was 8 years old, and I've been here ever since. I did fall in love with the mountains. I've done a lot of camping when I was younger with my family, and yes, when we go gold prospecting, we've gotten into geocaching. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's where you go out with your GPS unit and you actually find different caches, and you log in your name, if you've left anything. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And now we just do the camping together, and I got interested in Sasquatch through my husband. I didn't have experience when I was younger because no one in my family talked about it. I didn't have a clue, but we really enjoy it. Getting out and just spending time together. We like to fish, gold prospecting. I'm also a rock hound,
Yeah.
and we're learning our plants, trees, and all that stuff.
And we got to introduce y'all to Dan and Ricky. Vicky will walk around with a pocket full of rocks. Her pants are about falling down.
Yeah, that's the only problem. They're heavy.
Yeah, we love it. But I've done the geocaching, and that is fun. It gets you out and away from everyday things. Yeah. So, Jeff, Theresa said you got her into Bigfoot. So tell us how you got into Bigfoot.
Well, I've been interested in it all my life. It seems like the first time I got interested into Bigfoot, I think it was in '72. The Mysterious Monsters came out, the movie, and me and my dad went to see that right before we moved to Durango, and so that kind of, the stories about Bigfoot and all the different reports they had on there. I never really thought they were right here in Colorado. I always thought up in Oregon and Washington. Like where they got Patty's picture at the film, the Patterson film, and it was just. I got some of these UFO magazines when I was a kid. Used to read those a lot, and then they would have little stories and tidbits about Bigfoot in them, and I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting, and I really didn't really think too much about it, and I got into research just here in the last 12 years, and after I got into the research, I realized that me and my best friend Russ, we were camped out up by the Chambers Lake area, and we were at a little lake up in there, and we told my parents, yeah, we want to camp out tonight, so basically all we had is just a couple fishing poles and a little lean-to as a tent, and a little campfire by the lake, and we were sitting there, and about 1 o'clock there was like little rocks kind of we were sitting in a boulder field in this high lake up there, and these rocks were bouncing off the big boulders, and they weren't hitting us or nothing, and me and him thought, oh, they're chipmunks, so we grabbed rocks and just chucked them behind us, and that happened about 1:30, and then all of a sudden about 3:30 the rocks came back again, so we're just chucking rocks behind us thinking, oh, it's chipmunks, and then after actually getting into research, I'm thinking, man, that might have been an encounter, these rocks coming at us, and we were thinking chipmunks, but usually like the little critters like that, they'll hide at night, because that's when the predators are out. And so we've went back up and looked into the area quite a bit more, and we find little snap-offs where they look like they just snap the top of the tree off and then walk on. Yeah. And we went up there, me and a friend of my youngest son, he was only 3, and we were hiking down a trail, and it had just rained, and so it was really kind of sloppy and cold out. And we got to this one area of the trail where we had a feeling that there was something watching us, a really intense feeling, and me and him kind of instinctively put my son in between us as we were walking along, and he had the same feeling, something weird about this part. And so we're walking up the trail, and we're following a moose up. He had been slipping and sliding in the mud, and we got up there a ways, and it started raining again. So let's come back down the trail. And about in the same area where we felt that thing watching us, there was a deer standing right on the trail, and it wasn't moving. Huh. And it was just standing there. And we walked up, and it finally kind of walked off the edge of the trail. But over the trail, there were some low-hanging trees. And in one of these trees that we had walked under on the way up to the hill, there was a large carabiner, a big carabiner with a big piece of paracord hanging on it, a strap. And we would have seen it walking up the trail. And all of a sudden, this thing appeared on the trail. And so my friend, he says, man, this is a $high carabiner. He started hollering around, hey, somebody left their carabiner up here. You guys got your carabiner up here. And there was nobody else there. Nobody was parked by our car. And it was just it's kind of like a strange gift that they get, you know, and we didn't really at the time realize what was going on.
Right.
And it wasn't until we got into researching that's in the same area where we had the rocks thrown at us. And we find these little tree snap-offs, and then this carabiner was hanging in the tree, and that just kind of start to put 2 and 2 together, like maybe that was a gift they gave to us.
Yeah,
and
that's weird.
Yeah, that was our first big experience before we even really got into researching.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Theresa,
go ahead, Larry.
I was just going to ask Theresa, what did you think whenever Jeff told you he was going to start researching Bigfoot and wanted you to get into it? What was your first thoughts about it?
I was really interested. You come home with all these good stories.
Right.
And I wanted to take part in it. And I was like, okay, I want that experience. Let me go see what's going on. What are you talking about? I never heard it. You know, I never heard it from my side of the family, or no one talked about it. So I was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. So take me out.
Right. So you wasn't a hard sell on it then. You're ready to go.
Yes, I was. And then I went out and action started happening. I had my first sighting 6 months out in the field, and I'm hooked. So.
Well, I tell you what, would you mind telling us about your encounter and your sighting?
Yeah, that I would love to. It was about 6 months camping out in the field, and then this sighting, I know Jeff can tell the story a lot better. He can fill a lot more in than I can. But go ahead. Do you want to go ahead and just do that? Tell the story for me.
Well, this is a new area that we got into, and I'm sorry to say this, but some people in Colorado, the way they camp, it really gets me mad. We went and found this spot, and it had just snowed. There were 2 inches of snow on the ground, and they let the dang campfire go on. And that just irks me, especially what we got going on now. But that's always irked me in the past.
Yeah.
So anyway, we found this spot where somebody had their tents down, and you see where they pulled up the tents in big square areas, and the snow had fallen off around the outside edges. And so we looked around the area, and there was a few weird snap-offs we found, and that's kind of one thing that led us to the area. And so we went back 2 weeks later and camped on this ridge, and we started hearing some rock clacks around us. And so we had answered with a rock clack back, and never got nothing. But we decided to try a lower. We found a road going down to a lower valley, and we went back on this road, and we were getting our tent and stuff set up, and we had our tent set up. Then all of a sudden we hear a growl. Rrr. And I'm sitting, oh man, great, we got a bear. So, honey, make sure you know where your bear mace is, and make sure you got it. And so I actually got out our wood knocker. We used an LP jam block, big plastic jam block, and made a big knock with that, and to scare off the bear, at least from what we thought was a bear. Then all of a sudden we got 2 rock clacks in the same direction where we heard the bear, and another rock clack up above us on this ridge, and then there was another rock clack on the far left. And it's like, well, wait a minute, something's going on. And so we got the rest of our camp set up. Instead of sitting with our chairs facing this beautiful open valley behind us, we had our chairs facing up this ridge, looking in the trees. And we started doing rock clacks, and then we'd get a response from all the 3. And the one on the far right, we started calling him, after probably about the first year, we started calling him hard hitter. It just seems like he would come up and hit things so hard just to get in a reaction at you. And he started doing a rock clack off to this side, and then the one above would do a rock clack, and then he would do another rock clack, and the one above would do a rock clack, and you could tell that he was getting closer to the other Sasquatch in the rock clacks. And all of a sudden we heard a clack, clack, and we knew that they met up above this hill, which, we couldn't see up above the hill because it went up and there's a little rise up above it. And I said, man, we got so much action. I got to go let Mike know of our group. And I could only get a text message off to Mike. So I left camp and walked out of camp just a ways and left her sitting there. And I'm texting Mike. I says, man, we got a lot of action up here. We got 3 of them on this ridge rock clacking with us. And I go back to the chair, and Teresa's she's got her hands on her chair, and she's just got him in a death grip, and she's looking up the hill, and she's saying, no way, no way. And tell me what you're saying.
Well, this hill, it goes up about a 40-degree angle, because when we go camping, we don't just sit around the fire, or unless we have a fire going. We were aimed our chairs at this hill. It went up about 40-degree angle, then it leveled off. That's right where I had my sighting, is where it levels off. And a little bit about me, I do have multiple sclerosis. And if you look at me, you can't tell that I'm sick, but they must have knew that I had problems with my legs. So they felt safe. They were about 75 feet away from us where I had my sighting.
It's about as far as,
because they know that I'm not going to get up and just run up the hill. But yeah, it was awesome.
I'll tell them what
it was jet black. Yeah, these trees are so close to each other, you can't see unless it's on purpose. So he stepped out from the back of the tree, and it's like, oh, no way. He was jet black, blacker than anything that I have anything to compare it to, because it was black. And he looked like he was just groomed. And I say he because to me it looked like it was a male figure. And his hair wasn't really long. It looked like it just been combed. It was really nice.
How tall do you think he was?
Oh, we measured that. He was 9.
It was about 8.5 feet. We got a picture of the area where she's seen it at. And then I went up and I stood there and started doing the measurement things above my head. And she said, yeah, about there. And it was about 8.5 feet. So,
yeah.
And went back up, and there had been some kind of impressions, something to walk through the hard packed dirt, but you couldn't find a track.
It's hard to find one in Colorado.
And the thing that shocked us, as soon as I hiked up to that spot to do a look around, we actually discovered a spring right there. And so there was a natural spring, and the one was probably up there drinking water, kind of watching the spring, and then the other one was in this little valley, kind of like probably the alpha male of the group, and kind of watching out for everybody else that came down the road.
Yeah.
And it was just the most unique experience, though. It's almost like they were trying to teach us what rock clacking means in a strange way. We would do a clack, and then we'd get a response. So anyway, we do 2 clacks, quiet. We do another clack, nothing. I mean, it was almost timed out to be about a half an hour. You do another clack, then you get a response. And so it's like 2 clacks, quiet. So we started realizing, well, if we do 1 clack, we get more responses. And I guess it's kind of like when you're out hunting, if you're in distress, you shoot off 3 shots so they can help locate you better. If you only do 1 shot, it's going to be hard for them to locate you. And you start doing 2 shots, they'll have a better chance of locating you. Maybe that's one reason why this group only does 1 clack at a time. It's hard to tell.
But I found they do 3 rock clacks when, they're telling you, beware, somebody's coming.
Yeah.
And they've warned us before when people drive up the road, and before we even see them, we get these rock clacks like, oh, someone must be coming up. Okay.
Well, yeah. Theresa, how did this change your mindset after this sighting? Did you go through a period of having fear, or was it more respect, or?
I just was excited because I didn't feel any negative feelings from them at all. I was excited, very excited. And I wanted to get up and actually walk up there and feel him because his fur looked soft to me.
I haven't had a good visual, and she's the one that's had the better sighting than I have had, so I'm still jealous.
I understand.
Yeah.
I am too.
I remember that time when we were up at LBL and Shelly had a sighting, and she was in the truck with Larry, and I was in another vehicle, and I know how you feel, Jeff, because when Shelly told me about it, I just looked at her and said, "I hate your guts."
Yeah, exactly. The way afterwards she had her sighting, I'm the crazy one. I don't hold back much, and then we used to feed them and try to get interaction with them that way. And so we just spotted it, and here I go up there with a paper plate with bloody liver. And I take it up there and I put it up above the spring, hoping they'd eat it. And they never touched it, but I guess, and you look back at it, that's probably not a smart move to do, but I try to push the envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to think outside the box, and you have to try different things.
You do.
So,
yeah. That's how we'll learn.
That's how we learn. And you captured a photograph, and I have heard so many people talk about this photograph, and so many people say it's the best picture that they have ever seen. And so, Jeff, if you would, I would like for you to just go into the backstory and tell the story of capturing this picture.
Sure. It's an area we've been working for about 7 years. We just went there just a few times just to kind of see what the lay of the land was and the terrain. And one of the first experiences in this area, we smelled a death smell, almost like a rotted smell of roadkill. And I spent an hour doing loops and loops through this area trying to find the dead critter, and I couldn't find it. And then we went back up, and we used to shoot in the area, get out the little 22 and do some plinking. And we ran into the owner that lives on the property down below us, and got into a good conversation with him and his wife. And that's kind of how we showed up in the area. They allowed us to be on their private property from time to time and go down and research. And now it's kind of been a full-time area for us. And it took us more than about 2 years later, we actually went back, and this was 5 years ago now, that we went back and actually camped in the area. And it was at a time when I was kind of getting burned out on Sasquatch and doing research. You got to grab cameras, you got to get recorders, you got to get everything set up. So we were just basically doing a camping trip. We weren't doing calls, we weren't doing knocks. And so we went and we found this little camp spot, and there was a little creek going next to us, and there was a high ridge above us. And we sat there, and we got up there on a Saturday, and everything was really quiet. And Monday we thought we heard a rock clack. And so we did a knock and response to that, but didn't get any reply back. So, you hear a lot of knocks in the forest, maybe something fell, maybe something knocked something over. And then as weather in Colorado has it, the weather turned bad on us that Tuesday, and we were started getting rained on really good. So we jumped in the Jeep and we're hunkered down in the Jeep. But I did put an audio recorder out on the ridge up above us just to catch any kind of sounds that might be going around. And so we went up and we were sitting in the truck, and then pea-sized hail started coming down really hard. And I'm sitting, oh, great, it's probably depressed the button on the recorder and probably turned it off. And so I'm waiting for the hail to stop, and hail slowed down. And after rains up here, the mushrooms just pop out. So I like taking photographs. And so I'm a photographer, and I grabbed up my camera and had it ready and taking pictures as I'm walking up to the top of this ridge. And I checked out my recorder, which was in a black plastic bag, and it was covered up, and it was still on. But I gathered up some deadfall and started putting the deadfall on top of to cover it up in case the hail came back. And then I decided, well, I'm going to hike down the ridge to the west. And I just turned around and just took a couple steps, and all of a sudden, right behind me, big old rock clack right behind me. And I work in a Walmart at deli, I work at a Walmart in a deli. And so we turn around real fast when we're doing our slicing meat and getting stuff out for the customer. So I just spun around, and I didn't see it, and I just snapped a picture of that area. And I was pretty close to camp, and I'm thinking, well, maybe Theresa did a knock. And so I ran down the hill, and did you just do a knock? No. I just heard a knock up there. It was right behind me. And so we just, well, maybe we got one up there, it sure sounded like it. So we went back down the next day, and as soon as he walked in the house, I had to go through those pictures. I just felt there was something in there. So I went through my pictures, and I seen that picture where I was on the ridge, and I started zooming in on all the trees around it. Then all of a sudden, behind this small tree, there's this face, just one eye and a big gray nose, and the hair even looks matted down from where it got wet from the rain and the hail. And what people don't understand with the pictures, they think it's right behind the small tree. It's behind the small tree, but it's actually about 20 feet behind it. And it was actually going down the hill. So he's actually standing down lower than me, looking up at us from the tree. And so it was so hard to determine what size it was, but we seen that picture, we know that we had to get back up there. And so about 2 days later, we packed up and headed back up and did the follow-up series of shots in the area. And it's left the recorder in the same area. And after the second time we went back, you could actually hear something walking up to the recorder, and it tapped it, toop, toop, and then it walked on. And it's like, wow. So that really let us know that, there's something there. And we came back down and notified Mike Johnson and Scott Barta, the co-founders of our SIR group, that, we got one up there, because the pictures, everybody says it's pareidoia, and I come to hate that term. But, it wasn't there. It did a rock clack and then it left. Pareidoia doesn't do that, and it's just,
did a before and after picture.
Yeah, it just really turned out to be in an amazing area. And it seemed like that was just the start of this area and the things that go on there. It's really been amazing. We took our co-founders up because they wanted to do their own investigation to back our findings up. So they came up 3 weeks later, and we were sitting around the campfire and just talking. And it's about 11 o'clock at night, and we can hear something walking through the trees on the other side of the creek. And all of a sudden, you can hear this tree and it pulls a whole tree down, and we heard it sitting there live. It's like, that's,
It's loud.
It wasn't no moose
Right.
walking through, and it's kind of hard in an area that's forested. How are you going to find a tree that's fallen in a forest? But we did. The next morning I walked through and I found some impressions where it looked like it had walked and stepped on some sticks and broken. I actually got some toes and a part of a footprint casted with the broken branch in it. But I actually walked back to the road down below us, and that's where I found the tree. It actually broke the tree down and pulled it across the road we drove in on.
And it was alive too.
Yeah.
It wasn't a dead one or anything.
And it's just amazing the strength that they must have had to pull down a tree that was
It's a healthy tree.
almost 6 inches in diameter. The strength is just amazing. We didn't find any tracks, but there was a little triangular glyph of branches behind the tree after they had pulled it down. They must have put there. And it's just been a fun area to go back to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that photo is definitely, we're in a realm of blob squatches and pareidolia and all that, but the first time I saw that photo, I'm like, there's something there. No doubt about that. But have you got any more photos or anything since that time in that area, or seen this creature with your eyes?
No. Really haven't seen him. We've gotten a lot of action out of him. We got a lot of wood knocks, and we recently went back to this spot, and that's where we heard the howls come from, on a ridge above there. And we did have a tree that was pulled down during the daylight when we were having lunch.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there having lunch, and this tree got pulled down, and it's like, so it's kind of hard, you're in a forest already, and you try to find a tree that got knocked down. And
right.
I do kind of have a different way of doing things. Ever since I was into treasure hunting, I've been interested in dowsing. And so I pulled out my dowsing rods and, show me the direction where the tree is. And it's a weird thing in its own, but it actually led me down through this forest, and I found the tree that it had pulled down. And I could see a path in the underbrush where something stood by this small pine tree. And the pine tree was fairly small in diameter compared to the other one, but it had pushed it down and snapped it off clean at the roots.
Ooh.
And so the snapping of the roots and the tree falling through the other trees is what we heard. And I was actually able to look and follow the impressions in the undergrowth, and it had actually jumped. It had came up from the lower road below our camp, and there was a big rock there that it probably stepped on, and then it stepped up above on a higher part that was dirt, and I was able to cast a deep heel impression and a 13-inch track by about 4 inches wide at that point, where it had come across the road to go to the area to pull the tree down. And that was just amazing in myself. It's just like, well, it backs up, what we heard. We heard something going down, and to find out that it was probably one of them that did it is just really makes you feel like you're in a good spot.
Yes, sir. I agree with that. Can you back up a little bit and explain dowsing for people that may not understand what you're talking about, and explain why you think it may work with this subject?
Yeah, it's really unique. When I was in treasure hunting years ago, and I told you I grew up on a farm in Windsor, I was big into treasure hunting. I had the gold fever. And I came across an article where there were some Frenchmen that came out from Canada, came down from Canada, and they went to California and got rich in the gold fields. And as they were coming back with their gold, which was hidden in tin cans in their wagon, they had pulled over into LaPorte, Colorado, and that was the only little settlement in this part of Colorado back in 1886 is when this happened. And they pulled in for the night there, and then they left. And they say a band of Sioux Indians came down on them and killed them, and left one guy still alive. And a freight driver coming up from LaPorte found his body, found him and his group, and threw him in his wagon. He was still alive, and he took him out to Lawrence, Kansas. And when they got to Lawrence, Kansas, they got him to a doctor, and the guy got healed and actually went back up to Canada. And as the story goes, his son came back down in 1911, tried to find the gold, but couldn't. But anyway, I got interested in this area. It just sounded like the area I grew up when I was a kid on the farm, and talking about a bluff behind the house. And this bluff is the one I always climbed up to get rocks. And so anyway, I contacted a guy online through one of these melodetecting groups I was in. And he said, get this guy, he's a dowser. He can look at the aerial photographs of the area, and he can kind of, picture where this is. And so I sent him a small fee that he wanted and sent him the pictures. And then he got back with me the pictures, and I was able to locate it on a map where I needed to go from where he marked it. And I had my GPS, and me and my boys went out there, and I got permission from the landowner, which is the same landowner that used to own the land when I was a kid there. Her parents left it to her, so she owns it. And so we got in there, and I went to this spot and started metal detecting around. And if I didn't start finding little pieces of tin can laying around. And so I was finding the tin cans that were left by the guys that got attacked by the Indians. But to make a long story short about this, the founding father of Fort Collins, Abner Loomis, was the freight driver that drove this guy and found him out to Leavenworth, Kansas, to a doctor. And when he came back, it was amazing to his family. He was all of a sudden apparently wealthy. He had come back and dug up the gold for himself, and he became one of the founding fathers of Fort Collins, Colorado. I was close to finding the treasure, but I wasn't. And that's when it really intrigued me. Well, this dowsing thing, well, there might be something that works here. And so I actually been doing it for about 21 years, just on and on, and messing with it. And I actually had a job where we had to locate phone lines, and sometimes you couldn't locate them even with your machine hooked up to it. So they just gave me a bent wire of one of our little surveying flags that you see people flags in their yard. We just take that up and bend it to like an L, and somehow it points out where the water is. And it really, now that we've gotten into it more, we really get into like a meditative state, and you really got to concentrate on what you're looking for. And it helps you find things. I've never gotten rich off of it, but it does help you find, you can find water and find different minerals if you try hard enough. And we're trying to correlate that with Sasquatch right now. We're having some pretty interesting results. So
and I'm a newbie. I just started picking up. I'm just learning the dowsing rod.
Yeah. It's not just like picking up a stick and going out wandering around. You really got to put some effort, some thought into it.
State of mind too.
A lot of people don't believe it works, but from what we've seen, it works. So.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you can take 2 number 6 ground wires and make them into that shape, and you can go walk around your yard, and when you come across your water line, if you're holding them right, they're going to cross. I guarantee it. I've done it. So I haven't looked for gold though.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, that's really an interesting theory that I've not heard of. And I'm going to tell you, if you're watching tonight, that is something to write down in your little notebook, because that's a golden nugget. Because a lot of us, including myself, have a theory that they do follow the water. And
Yes.
they may very well have senses that we don't use as humans, and know where the water is under the ground. And I think that's a great nugget, Jeff. And I think that's something that we should all put in our little box and write down in our notebooks, because that's a great point that you brought up.
Thank you.
It seems like the skills kind of grow with you as you get older.
Yeah.
We located an area in North Park last year, and it kept telling me that there was a Sasquatch on this hill. And so, okay, I went up to this hill and I walked around. I didn't see nothing, and then you got to start asking different questions to back up what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually said there was probably a Sasquatch buried up there, a grave of a Sasquatch. That's why I was saying there's a Sasquatch, but it wasn't a living Sasquatch. You have to put your words just right, what you're looking for, and then you got to rephrase it to get the right answers.
Get more specific.
But the intriguing thing, when we're out this summer at our area, and I started asking where the Sasquatches are, and it was, sorry, tangle up here. It was actually telling me that we had 4 Sasquatches around us in this area. And then I started going into detail. Well, where's the big male at? And it was saying that he's on the ridge behind you. Okay, where's the female at? And it was saying she's down here on the corner of the road. And then I knew there were 2 other Sasquatches. And so I start going back and asking, is it 1 year old? Is it 2 years old? Is it 3 years old? And it finally gave me a yes on a 7. There's a 7-year-old Sasquatch. Then I'd go ask about the age of the other Sasquatch, and it was a 17-year-old Sasquatch. And they're both at different areas lined up around our camp. And then the intriguing thing is, the next day, I asked where the 4 were, and at night, I would get a response. They all went down to the lower valley together, and they were all in a group in the lower valley, where they hunt, where there's a couple of lakes in there. So they were down in the lower valley hunting. And then during the day, they would all come back. But the female would always stay down here, but then the 2 youngsters and a bigger male would change locations. So I'd be getting the 7-year-old on the ridge above us. The big male would be to our right, and then the 17-year-old one would be straight across from us watching. I didn't see the Sasquatch. It's just something that the rods were telling me to keep an eye on this area.
Wow.
I understand that. We got a buddy that's got a crystal, and he'll ask, he don't ask for any information that's useful. He'll ask, is Mark in danger? And it'll circle yes or no or whatever. And then he'll say, is Larry going to die? And it'll say yes or no. And I'm like, why don't you ask it something pertinent instead of that?
And he always asks us that right as it's getting dark. And you're 2 miles into the wilderness, and there's no way just to hike right out of it. And so I think he's more or less just trying to spook us.
Yeah, and he did it. He did it to his buddy right before they were going to bed and asked if he was going to die, and it said yes. And he put it up and went to the tent and went to bed. That guy's like, get back out here and ask it if you're going to die.
You can't really trust it 100%, but it at least gives us a good area to point us in. I hate when we get to an area and it's like, well, where are we going to hike? And this thing will say, well, maybe start off in this area. Okay, why not? You know, it's better than nothing. So, you know, it gives you a direction to go to. So
Absolutely.
that's one thing that we're testing.
Yeah.
I would like to shift gears and for you to tell us the backstory of these knocks that you captured 2 years in a row.
Yeah, that's a great area. I'll fill you in how we got to this area. When I joined up with Sir 12 years ago, me and Theresa went down to Parker, Colorado, and we met Mike Johnson and Scott Walters that was with the group at the time, and they were explaining to us what their different encounters and everything. So they asked us if we'd want to come up and go out with them some weekend, and I said sure. And the wife was working at the time, so she couldn't make it. And this is the very first time out Sasquatch. I've been interested in all my life, but never done it. And so I'm nervous, and I'm pretty nervous. We're going out doing this, and then, you know, and we got camps set up, and when we get to an area, we get camp set up, and then we do a big hike through around a pretty big round circle around our campsite. You know, we take about a 4 or 5 hour hike around the area. So we really put ourselves out there so they can see us. I think that really helps in the research. And we got to this area, and the very first time I'm out, and this is a new area to Mike too. He'd been there once before. And so we're sitting down along the campfire, and the sky has just turned, the sun's gone down. It's just turned blue in the background. So I had to run off behind the tree. I come back, and I'm walking back up to the fire, and I'm looking up at the top of this ridge. And all of a sudden, for a split second, there's this arm, shoulder, and a head sticking out behind the tree. And all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. It drops down, it disappears. And I'm just kind of standing there like, okay, I'm out here looking for these things. I just seen a strange shape behind a tree. That can't be possible. And Mike's sitting there looking at me, and I says, man, he says, what's going on? You see something? I says, I could have swore I just seen the shape behind the tree up there. And he says, I just seen movement off to the right of there. And so it's possible there was a Sasquatch on this ridge. And we walked up the next day and no impressions of any kind. But this was one of our hot areas that we go to quite often. And down below, it's in up around Pikes Peak in Rampart Range up in there. And we planned a week trip after that. And we spent a whole week in the same location. And then it was that spring of 2012, I think, 2012. And we were on spring break because of Mike's son Trenton has spring break off. So we all went up there, and there was 4 of us in the outfitter's tent. And the day before we got our first set of knocks, I had gotten in the Jeep and drove up to a little area and pulled off, and I got out my little drum, and I just do kind of like a heartbeat, you know, thump, 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 thump. And I did a heartbeat sound for about 20 minutes, just continuously. And then we went back up to the camp and got set up for the night. And it was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. And all of a sudden we hear this, something's just pounding on something. Then it kind of stops a little bit. Then it starts up again and keeps doing this. I think we counted over 48 times that it did this repeated knocking. And the next day that was the only talk we could do. Man, you hear that knock? And we tried to repeat it. And I mean, it wears you out if you try to continue with that speed that it was doing it. And it's just, it's just amazing. Mm-hmm. But this was on spring break. And so we go back the next year, and we get there the same time as spring break, around March, and got our outfitter's tent set up. and there was about 7 of us in there at the time, and we just kind of do everything. We do a bunch of calls around camp. Mike's got the deep lungs, so he does the big whoops, and we're doing the wood knocks and trying to get some action that way. And it's a pretty quiet group. They they don't do a lot of wood knocks, but during the day it seems. But then that night, all of a sudden, we didn't even play a drum or anything like that again. That was just from the year before. And so we went back in the outfitter's tent, and this time it's about 3:00. And by 9:00 that evening, it's starting to snow on us. So we're getting snow throughout the night, and at 3:00 we get this knock, and this thing's doing this almost the same kind of drum beating. It's beating, hitting a tree or a dead tree or something. We just keep getting got this cool knock, and you get up the next morning, you see about 3 inches of snow on the ground. We're saying, man, we're gonna have this thing, so we all headed west where we all thought the sound came from. But the way Colorado is, in about 3 hours, all the snow was gone. And the 7 of us hiked a big quarter. We were, so many yards apart looking for any kind of signs. And we never found a track or anything. And we think possibly maybe we headed off in the wrong direction. Maybe it was above our camp instead of down below it. It was just really felt like we were going to find something good after that. Because, you hear this knock. It's got to leave tracks. It's got to be close. But we never came up with nothing.
Right.
Wow.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knocks, trees falling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what. Let's go ahead and we will play these knocks. And I have put these 2 audio clips together from the first one would be the first year that you heard it, and the second one will be from the second year. So we'll play these clips now.
Good.
Larry, I don't know about you, but I have never heard so much knocking like that at one time. And
I haven't either.
and to
To have what?
and to have it 2 years in a row like that.
Yeah. The only thing it brings to mind is when Dan Ricky told us about him playing the drums and then something in the woods playing back something that sounded like drum beats.
Yeah, was kind of mimicking it back.
Right. Yep.
Jeff,
But I've never heard that live for sure, or on audio that I put out.
Jeff, why don't you paint for us a picture of what this area is like, and if it would be possible that if there might be human activity around.
Okay, this is it's a secluded camp spot, and there's a few houses around, but they're probably about 5 miles away, so they're not really that close. But it's a secluded area, and we always go to the end of the road. And when we find a camp spot, and then we work the other areas in that camp spot if that one doesn't work. But we get to the end of the road, and we usually can't set up camp, and then we do a big hike around. But this area is big enough that we usually drive through the whole area just to see if there's anybody else there. We actually took Jeff Meldrum up to this spot 2 years ago, and we're driving down the road. I'm showing him some of the back roads up there, and I got the wife in the truck with him, and we drive up over this ridge, and there's this old guy sunbathing in the nude. So it's like, okay. So we just kind of waved and, turned around and left and went back down. But we drive through the whole area, and we look for different people camped there. And, there's usually, in this spot, there's no one that can be camped right next to you. And on these 2 times, especially with the snow coming down, there was nobody else camped in the area. And so it was pretty much off limits to nobody was there just for us.
No, you sure the old nude sunbather wasn't an old Sasquatch that lost its hair?
Yeah. No, it was kind of funny. Jeff and them were going to follow us up. Me and Theresa went up there and turned around and came back down. Hey, you might want to wait a little bit. There's a guy up there sunbathing. Pretty soon he got back on his ATV and his little dog and came riding back from the field. Just closed on this time. So
I don't know about you, Larry, but I could see our buddy Bama Murdoch pulling a stunt like that.
I don't want to say it.
But I tell you, it's whenever you take the human element out of it, that's when it really makes you sit there and scratch your head and think, wow, there's no other cars parked up here. There's no hikers. We haven't heard anybody. And this is just like they were mimicking when you were sitting there playing the drum. And
I was just really trying to see if I'd get a reaction. I didn't think the reaction would be like that. I thought maybe we'd hear maybe a couple of knocks when I got done playing the drum, but it was really quiet, and then they come back in the darkness of night to hide themselves better. And it's just amazing, to hear that. And it's like, man, the strength that must be involved to continually doing a beat like that is just amazing. Then the second year to come back and they do it again. And we didn't really, I guess you call it, provoke them into doing it. We didn't do no drum beats at that time. They just remembered us. I think I really think they remembered us, and we always have the same tent. I had the same Jeep forever. Mike has the same red truck, and we always go into the same area, and we park the same way, and we set up camp pretty much the same way every time. And I think that, you keep doing it the same way, they get used to that, and it just it really helps with the progression of the
and every
search.
time we go out, that's what we do. We drive around to see who else is there.
Right.
So if we hear anything, we can
eliminate the human factor.
Yeah.
A tidbit that we started doing after when I first got into this 12 years ago, I was talking to Randy Brisson up in Canada, researcher up in there. And he said that the one thing that he does that really seems to help him is he lights an incense when he gets into camp. And so that's one thing that we do all the time. If you don't, if you can't have fires, you can't have fires, so you can't do it. But we started lighting, same type of incense. And so we light the sage incense. We get into camp, like the smell, and that smell will travel a lot further than sound, I think. And that's another good reason. You go there with the same sound and light that. Oh, some smelly Yeleks over here again. Okay.
But think that's a good point. The repetition and y'all doing the same type thing every time and them getting accustomed to y'all. I think they were probably trying to get you to get the drum set out the second year and play another beat. Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's most intriguing. This area has just been amazing since, the first seeing the one on the ridge, and then it took a year for me to get Theresa out there, but that first year we went back the first time and seen the one on the ridge, and then I went back about a month later and we spent a week in this area. And it was kind of quiet. We got some wood knocks around us, but the coolest thing that happened is it's not the coolest thing, but we do a buddy system at night. So if you got to go out and water the bush, anybody else need to go with me? Because we don't know what we're dealing with.
Right.
And so me and Mike, we both had to go water the bush. So he's on his right side of his truck, and I was on the left. And we're sitting there and we're doing our business, and Mike looks straight ahead, and all of a sudden, straight ahead are these two glowing eyeballs about the size of tennis balls.
Ooh.
And it's like, what? And then all of a sudden it kind of look away, and then you'd lose view of the eyes, and they'd come back, then all of a sudden you see there's round balls of light in the air. And it looked really low to the ground. And here we are, we're out looking for these things, and it's like, well, there's one right there, and what do? You just go back into your tent. Well, we found him. What do you do now? So it's like, but the next day we realized that there was a low ditch behind our campsite, and it was actually walking in the ditch, so it made it look a little bit smaller than it probably actually was. It was probably a lot taller than it was for crouching down this ditch, creeping behind the tent. But have you guys witnessed eye shine?
Yes.
What do you believe it is?
I don't know. I go, people talk about the different colors and stuff, and some people take a lot of ownership in, well, if it's this color, it's this, or it's that animal, or whatever. But I remember seeing a picture on the internet, and it was about 5 cats that were on a stairway, and each one of those cats had a different color eye shine. And it just kind of told me that the way the light was hitting the eyes and the different spectrums that it was producing. And so it just really made me think, and not to put a color into concrete what that animal is, because it may have more to do with where the moon was positioned and where the animal was positioned. And so but yes, we have seen eye shine out there in the woods before.
We've Mike Johnson's son Trenton's pretty much grown up with us out in the woods, and he's quite the young man now. And we've been up with him at this Central Colorado location, and his sisters were with us one time, and we're out walking, and we're doing this night walk, and we're walking back to our campsite, and we see this eye shine like underneath the trees. And you have to line up just right to see the light. You got to everybody's kind of standing behind each other looking for the light. And then Michael C. Trenton says, "Your eyes are beautiful. They're so beautiful." And all of a sudden they flashed bright white at us. They were red at first, and they flashed bright white at us, and it's like, whoa. It's like it like heard you. It was listening. That's cool. I can't put a finger on how they're doing it, or You know, I know we've been out sometimes and it's a dark night, clouds are out. I don't know where the light comes from.
Wow.
It's like they illuminate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's the one thing that when we go out, we don't, because I hear about people having to hike so far to reach them. We have them right in camp, so we don't really have to go anywhere. We just go camping.
Come to us.
Yeah, they come right to us.
Yeah.
I think that's a great strategy because it's my personal opinion of when you enter into those woods, if these creatures are, if that is a part of their backyard, they know when you enter into the woods. And I personally feel like that they're curious creatures, and so they are going to keep an eye on you, and they may become more active at night as far as watching you. I've always called it where they're TV, where they're entertainment. And if they've got a full belly and they're relaxed and they just want to sit around and watch what the humans are doing.
What are those crazy humans doing now? Yeah.
I want to remind everybody, if you have questions for Jeff and Theresa, put them in all caps, and we have somebody sending us the questions, and we will ask them at the end of the show. And Jeff, why don't you tell us about the time a hand pushed in on your tent?
Yeah, it was a little bit more than pushing in on the tent. We were camping up by a spot up by Yampa, Colorado, and this was my first year. I think they're really trying to break me in this first year. I really did all this different things that happened to us, but it was me and Mike, and we were in his outfitter's tent, and he says, if you want to get some good action, you want to sleep in this far left corner over here. It seems like people get touched on the back and stuff there while they're sleeping. It's like, well, okay, I'll push the envelope, you know. So I set up my cot in the corner of the tent, and I actually, when we went to bed about 11:30 midnight, I actually had my head laying towards the outside edge of the tent. And back in the day, I would not lay there and look at the side of the tent. I was just kind of a freaky feeling. If you see something walk by, it took me a long time to finally lay there with my head facing out of the tent, looking at shadows going by. But I was laying there, and it was like 2:15 in the morning, and I hear the branch and the brush outside moving, and it's, the wind's coming in, you know, and I'm slowly starting to kind of go back down to sleep, and all of a sudden something just grabs the side of my face, and it's just, I can feel it from my chin up to my forehead, and it's just pushing my head down into my cot. And I like get up, whoa! And it wakes Mike up, and he says, what happened? It just grabbed me on the head, and it's pushing my head down into the cot, you know. And he just nonchalantly, you know, he's been doing this for years. He says, well, just turn around, put your feet there so it places your feet next time. It's like, it's just, it was the weirdest experience, you know, and I didn't feel claws or anything like that on it. It just felt really soft, just kind of pushing my head down in the cot. And, you know, I come away with that experience, and I guess I should be really shocked by it, but it was really an eye-opening experience to me that I'm sure if you get in the wrong situation with a Sasquatch, you could end up really bad. But this kind of showed me that they're not out to harm you. They're just kind of out checking us out. You know, he's just kind of reaching around the tent and knows there was a human there somewhere. So he's kind of reaching around and end up coming down on my face. But they seemed to really work on me during that trip. That we cook, and whatever's left over from dinner, we take down a little feeding pit. And so that the night before that, we had left food out and put it down the feeding pit. This is the night after I got grabbed. And so that morning I got up, nobody else in camp was up yet. And so I walked down the meat pit to see if they had eaten, and the plate was upside down. And I hung a little medicine wheel in a tree, Indian medicine wheel in a tree, and it was laying on the ground. So just as I was reaching down to pick up the medicine wheel to hang it back in the tree, all of a sudden I get this growl. And I mean, I could feel my lungs shaking in my chest. And I'm like, oh man, I got a bear. So I'm grabbing out the bear mace, and I didn't see nothing. I didn't hear nothing else. So, well, wait a minute. Maybe you got a Sasquatch. So I had my camera out, and then it growled again. And so I started snapping pictures, but I never got nothing in the camera. And it's just amazing that the growl, though, it just, boy, it's like all your innards were shaking around. It was just, wow. Mm-hmm. And that was all during 1 week, 1 week in this area. It's another amazing area that we've had a lot of interesting encounters in. I really messed up, though. That's when I was first starting to try to get a lot of good audio recordings. And it was like the second night there before the night I got touched. We heard one scream, and Mike's seen a red female in this area with red hair. And she's got a younger Sasquatch. From the tracks on our website, he's got pictures of her tracks. And there's smaller footprints next to hers you look under footprints under the SIR website, and it'll show mama's tracks and the baby's tracks. And she's actually trying to wipe out the young Sasquatch's tracks to hide it. But he's seen her in that area. And that night we got a scream, like it sounded like a woman screaming in the woods, and all of a sudden it screamed, and then all of a sudden a pack of coyotes opened up. And then we had one of the coyotes come yelping through camp like something hit it. Boop, 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 boop. Coyote was running through camp, and I was like, wow. And next morning I got up and I got my recorder and I listened to it. I had it on the recorder. I'm sitting, yes. And so I uploaded it to my laptop, and of course, the way the Curse of the Sasquatch, we didn't get the audio. I didn't have it recorded like I thought, and I ended up erasing the micro card and lost a good sound. So I've been trying to make up for the sound ever since, trying to get a good something good out of them. But yeah, it was just an amazing week out in the woods that time.
So when the Bigfoot reached in the tent, was it his hand on your face or the tent between you, the tent wall pushed in around?
No, we have an outfitter's tent, so it reached in underneath the outfitter's tent because there wasn't enough, it was so tight, the right. Tarp, the canvas on the outside, that I'm pretty sure it reached in underneath and came down on my head. Mike's actually seen firewood being pulled out from underneath the outfitter's tent one night. We have a wood stove in there, and he was looking down and seeing this wood being pulled out to the outside. So I'm pretty sure they were reached in and came down on me.
Yeah.
Y'all need to be setting up some cameras on you while you're in the tent.
Yeah.
His hair was longer, like in the middle of my back. I had my hair played with. They just stick their hand underneath, and because I was in the same corner that he was that night.
Yeah.
Just took a little finger and just like play with my hair.
Yeah.
You sure that wasn't Larry Porst the second?
Oh, Mark. That ain't right.
But
Jeff, what do you think about that question?
But in all seriousness, what you have spoke of is something that both Larry and I have both experienced at different times and it's really it's almost a lot of times when you're in a sleep and and you think about it when you wake up, you think, well, was I dreaming this? And then you get up and you start investigating the next morning, and you kind of find some evidence that something could have very well have been there doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys experience, we go out, we try to do a week at a time, and it seems like as each night progresses near the end of the week, it seems like your dreams get more intense. Does that happen with you?
It does with me. Yes.
I wonder if that's something that they're projecting or doing, or whether it's just the whole scenario of you're being out in the woods looking for this, that your dreams get more excited by the end of the week. I don't know.
I've wondered the same thing, because when I'm at home, I don't dream about Bigfoot. But when I'm out camping, I'll have a dream about Bigfoot, something weird. And I usually don't remember most of my dreams, but I'll wake up the next morning and think, wow, that was kind of real.
Jeff,
Yeah.
why don't you talk to us about the Sasquatch investigations in the Rockies, the SIR group?
All right. Yeah. It's a good group, and it's the first group that we've gotten into. And like I said before, it took her a year almost to get into it. But Michael Johnson started the group, and he's been the real matriarch of the group. He really showed me the first 2 years, the signs to look for, how to go about trying to set up a communication with them. And it's just, no question's stupid to him. He'll try to answer it the best he can, and there's Scott Barta. Mike and Scott have been best friends since they were young. And so Scott lives out in Kansas, and he comes out a lot of the times and researches with us. Real good guy. And we have Ron Peterson of our group, and Dave Otke. Dave Otke's kind of retired now. I think he's about 79, and his lungs won't let him go up into the high country anymore. So he's kind of grounded. Then we got John and Robin Roberts, husband and wife team. And we have Tony Lombardo of our team. He does a lot of sounds, and he travels a lot and does a lot of interviews. He's got this a good video, if you guys ever get a chance to see it, Oma Wing, and it's the infrasound aspect of Sasquatch, and he's gone around and talked to other researchers throughout the U.S. about their experiences, and it's a real good documentary if you get a chance to see it. And then we got Jim Brown of our group, Paco. He's a good friend. He's almost like a Native American of the group, and he brings in the Native American aspect to the group. And we have Brian Hammond, and then we have some people in our group from out of state. We have Harriet McFeely out of Nebraska, Ellen V out of Nebraska, and Scott Carpenter out of Missouri. He's got a lot of great videos out, and I've never met him yet, and he's usually kind of stuck out there in Missouri. I'd like to catch up with him someday. He's got some great evidence.
Scott's a great guy, and we know Scott. He's a great guy, and he's got a great team.
Now wait a second, I'm confused. There's a Scott Carpenter in East Tennessee that's known for Bigfooting, and there's Shane Carpenter out of Missouri that's known for Bigfooting, and now you got another Scott Carpenter out of Missouri.
No, this is Shane Carpenter. Shane.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
From the 400.
Right. I thought you said Scott.
No, I'm sorry if I did. Yeah. Thanks for correcting me. And then we got Mike's son, Trenton Johnson in our group. So we have a small group. It's about 16 members. And we have a website, and we like to call it an educational website. We put different tree breaks and stuff down. We don't didn't see the Sasquatch do it, but we feel that this is in a connection with what they're possibly doing. And we have found some massive tree structures that you look at and your mouth kind of drops, like, why would humans be doing this out there in these woods? You got these 3 trees that are over 40, however tall they are, and they're all twisted at the top to make like a teepee structure. And we have evidence broke down on our SIR website we got our footprints, and we got hair samples. We've had scat samples. And one of the big things we find here in Colorado is it appears that when they do a deer kill, a lot of times we'll find in one of our campsites, we found 6 twisted off deer legs and spiral fractures in the bone. And they grab the deer and break its leg off to slow it down, is what we're guessing. We don't, never seen it do it, but it could be a guess that's one way they're taking down deer. And we just kind of break down our group into different areas, and we have some audio on there. We got a few videos, but a lot of our rock clacks and wood knocks that we recorded out in the woods. And we've had a little description of your different encounters. Like we go out and a lot happens on a trip, and then we'll post a little research, trip log about what we did and what we found. It's been kind of slow the last couple of years, but we're still adding to the website and trying to keep everybody up on track on what we're finding out there when we do go out.
Well, I think that's very good that y'all have can't think of the word, but y'all document what y'all find out there, and you put it out there for other researchers to be able to examine it and look at it and look for maybe common denominators of what they are finding when they go out. And to me it's amazing that you see these same common denominators in different parts of the country and different types of terrain. And I think I have to commend y'all for the way that y'all share what y'all find so that other people can learn and examine it.
Yeah, it is fun to, and then, especially with us being in the group, we can go back, hey, what happened on this date in this area, so it kind of helps keep us on track about, what happened here the last time, kind of like a journal for us all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Shelley's going to hate it that I mentioned her name, but that's kind of her job, and that's what she brings to the table. And, if we see something or hear something or experience something that happens, and we say, wait a second, didn't this happen a couple of years ago when we were in Oklahoma or Alabama or wherever? And she has these composition books, and she will go back and she'll tell you what the weather was like, what the moon phase was like, if there was any rain, how long it had been since it rained, all of these minute details. And then we're able to look at what just happened to what happened maybe 2 years ago and look for any of those common denominators. And those are good habits to practice whenever you're going to take the time to go out in the field and actually do research. You might as well document everything so that it can help you on down the road.
And we're so thankful to have Shelley, because we're too lazy to do it.
Yeah, we used to sit there and the next morning, well, we heard wood knocks, so we're going to have to go back and listen to the sounds. But now we're getting down to the point where we're got a writing pad with us all the time. Okay, we heard a knock at this time, so then we can go back and pick them right up on the recorder to help us out. But I still sit there when I go through audio and I'll listen from the very first hour we get there all the way to the last 5 days. It takes a long time, a week or so, if not more, to go through it if you have the time to listen to it straight through. But it takes a while to listen to everything. It really does.
But it's important to do that because you pick up on things that you didn't hear with your ears. So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right,
we've caught.
Larry, I guess I cannot believe we've been talking for 85 minutes. It's just flying by.
Well, you need to let the guests talk then.
So,
all right, so we're getting to the questions now.
Yeah, I think
I'm going to start off with mine.
Okay.
Now, Theresa, where you had your sighting and where Jeff got the picture, were they same location or different locations?
Different locations.
Okay, because I wanted to know if what you saw looked like the picture.
Well, I didn't see the face when I see my sighting. I seen kind of the side of him. Yeah, but no, they're in different locations.
Okay. All right, carry on, Mark.
Okay, CD Squatcher. And this goes back to the knocking audio clip. Asks, do you think there is a reason or meaning to the knock patterns?
And when I did my knock pattern, I tried to replicate the human heartbeat, kind of toned to the beat. And theirs isn't really a heartbeat like sound. I mean, it probably didn't understand that I was trying to replicate a heartbeat. So I'm not really sure. I'm sure they're saying something to us, and hopefully one day we'll figure out what it is. But right now I think he was just kind of mimicking what I did, but then he comes back the second year and does a different knock, which was a little bit different than the first year. And I think they were just trying to get our attention, but it's hard to say.
It's almost like they recognized you. You talked about burning sage incense, and I am convinced, it's just a personal opinion, that they are intelligent enough to recognize the differences in between humans and to know when the same ones are returning to an area.
Yeah, that's why we always try to do the same thing, set up camp, tent, same area, everything.
Yeah.
So they can kind of look down in the area from wherever they're at. Oh, that's the same setup that those people do. Maybe that's them.
Yeah.
All right. Still Crazy Chris asked, do y'all carry firearms when you go into the woods?
No, sir. Nope. We don't carry any firearms at all. We have our bear mace, and that's about it. We've had some pretty close encounters with a mountain lion, we think, in one of our areas, but never seen them. And these wood knockers we use, they're pretty loud, so we do a lot of those before we go to bed, just in case there is any mountain lions close, to keep them off in a distance, but no firearms.
Okay.
Is the no firearms a personal thing, or do you think it keeps the Sasquatch at bay?
I kind of think it keeps them at bay. Yeah, we did used to take a gun out with us, and we had one guy mention to the fact that maybe they can smell the gun oil.
Uh-huh.
But that was only because we went to a brand new area, just me and her, and we just we both got bear mace, and so we just don't really think it's necessary.
Okay.
All right. Cynthia Cox makes us observation, and so I would like to share it with you. And she said that picture that you captured is the best that she has ever seen since the Patty footage. And so we thank you, Miss Cynthia, for your comment. And
thank you.
CD Squatcher asked, do you think there is a difference between eye shine and eye glow?
I don't really know the definition between the two. I really couldn't answer that. I'm not sure. It seems like somehow, like I said, during a cloudy night, it's, you're not getting any star shine, you're not getting no moonshine coming through, and it just seems like all of a sudden there's light, and it's almost like they're producing it themselves. But that's all I know. I'm not sure.
All right. David Blaylock asks, have you noticed that their eye shine doesn't blink or move?
It seems to move. When we had the one behind our tent, it was turning from side to side, and we'd lose it. And it'd come back, and we've seen it go from red to white. And that's what was his exact question again?
If you ever noticed that their eye shine doesn't blink or move.
Oh, I've never really taken that into account. No, it seems like it moves to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Our last question here is from our friend Diane Fowler. And my phone. There we go. What is the scariest you have been out in the bush?
That was for Theresa.
That was for Theresa?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Where'd I been when you go out?
And that time you got touch on the back, walk down the tent.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got up at night, and I do think them waiting for me to go to the bathroom. And when I get back in the tent and lay down, I was going to go back to sleep, and I felt a handprint come through the tent and push the tent in and touch my back.
Oh.
It took my whole back because her hand's that big. I wasn't really scared. I was a little nervous because then we heard him walk around to the front of the tent and just use his fingernail and zip right down the tent.
Yeah,
I was like, thank you for letting me go to the bathroom first. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm better seeing them, which I haven't seen them, than them being right outside the tent doing stuff like that. That would seem to freak me out more than seeing them do something. I don't know why.
Oh, more often than not, when we're, especially just me and her up camping, we'll actually get into the tent, and as soon as we turn off the lights, they'll walk right up to the tent. You'll hear bipedal footprint, boom, 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 and then it'll stop.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm pretty sure it's them. Unless it's a big moose standing there watching you, but we've heard them walk up to the tent. Then it starts playing with a tarp we have, and it's like scratching on this tarp. And then we whoop from the woods, and then all of a sudden you'll hear it run off. And we think that's one of the younger kids in camp playing. And one of the parents called it back. All right, leave them alone. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to happen a lot.
I do have another moment that I think I was scared this time. I don't know. It's when we were at that camp, and we were with, I think Trenton was there too, and Scott and Mike. It's when one came up behind me. You guys were out in the road.
Oh, yeah.
And left me by the campfire by myself, and I could just feel one. I stood up. I could just feel one come right behind me.
Ooh.
And I felt like I could actually walk in front of me. And I said, I thought I was ready, but I don't think I'm ready yet. So can you please back off? And I was really, they did. I was like, wow, they didn't have to do that. And he's like, well, never mind. We can just come up. But they backed off, and went really fast to where everybody else was.
Yeah, we'd seen a strange light on the road, well, above the road. I don't know what it was, UFO or whatever, but we were all looking at this light going down zipping down through the valley, and all of a sudden I turn around, there's Theresa right behind me. It's like, wow, you got here quick. And that was a real shock. She's like, she doesn't run, but boy, she was right there.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
I can imagine.
we have a lot of friends that are in your area of the country. Bob and Kathy Strain, Mark Marcel, Kim Christensen, that are going through these fires. And we know that y'all are going through these fires too. And we want you to know that we're praying for you. And we hope that y'all don't have any damage. But I'd like to give you a minute or two to discuss firsthand what it's like to experience what's going on right now.
Yeah, we didn't realize we had a bunch of fires going in Colorado our last camping trip, and we didn't realize that the Cameron Peak fire was going on above us. We woke up to smoke in the camp spot Friday morning when we came down, which was a scary thing. We thought a lot of the smoke was being brought over from Grand Junction, but we came back down to find out that there was a fire around Chambers Lake. And depressing thing to me about that is that's where I've had my first encounter. Now the whole area's burned up. So it's a drag. It's a real drag, but we just pray and hope that, they get it under control, and all the firefighters and everybody that's been working these things. You got people on the phones calling to get people out of areas. Everybody that's involved, a big shout out. You guys are doing a great job, and keep up the good work and be safe.
Stay safe.
Be safe out there. Thanks.
Well,
thanks so much.
Yeah, we want to definitely keep the first responders and all of the people involved, and hope that they stay safe. Hope that they can get these fires curtailed, and and just be careful when you're out there. One of the most, I guess you might say, spiritual things that I have seen is, and it's not necessarily spiritual, but it was a sign of respect, is watching the Navajo Indians put out a fire, and the extent that they went to make sure that the campfire that we had was totally put out. There was no chance of any type of coals. It was just great detail, and I learned a lot from watching the Navajos do that, and it's something that I practice to this day, because we have to be careful out there, and we have to protect our forest. And even though there's other things out there that can ignite fires, we have to make sure that we're not in that equation of starting a fire. I think we had one more question. Was it from Bama, Larry? That
it
asked
was from Bama.
Okay, well, go ahead and ask that.
Bama asks, have y'all ever seen the lights while out in the woods?
The lights?
Unless it's just their eye shine. That's the only lights that we've seen. It was interesting, though. I didn't bring this up. This last week we went out camping. We kind of do the spiritual thing, and we have a and Tibetan singing bowl. You put the stick inside and makes it sing. And we actually heard one in camp. And so I got the singing bowl out and I started to make the sound with it. And then all of a sudden on the side of the tent, there was just this bright round ball of light on the side of the tent, like somebody shined a flashlight on it. Then it was gone. And I talked to Mike about it. And when he was out with Jeff Meldrum, they had seen a light on the side of the tent and there was no light around. There's cloud cover above them. Then I thought maybe it was a meteorite on us, but it wouldn't have lighted up the trees that much. And right on the side of the tents where the only form of the light was. So that's the only strange light that I've seen that I really can't account for. I'm guessing it was them. You know, you don't know for sure.
Right.
Wow. You know, that's something that Shelley brought to our table, was that Tibetan singing bowl. And that's, I love it. She's got all kind of out of the box ideas.
I love it too.
And
yeah.
And
I call it Back and Bow from the TV, the movie with Steve Martin.
I see we were talking about Shane Carpenter a while ago, and I see that he just asked a question, and I want to throw in a plug for Shane. And if you haven't watched our podcast with Shane Carpenter, we had another with Randy Harrington, and to go and check out the 400. This is a great documentary that he has done. And do you see what question he asked, Larry?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and listen.
And don't forget about Dan and Chris also. We've had them.
Yes, we've had Dan and Chris on also.
All right. Shane asked, do you get a vibe when the Sasquatch are around?
You get a feeling, kind of a kind of intense feeling. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Has Shane come out with his second part of the 400 yet?
No, he's dragging around. He's running around doing other stuff.
That's a great video you got there, Shane, the 400. That is great. We've watched it a couple times now, re-rented it, and really want to watch the follow-up on it. You got some great work out there.
Definitely.
Keep up the search.
Well, I guess we have about come to the end of this podcast, and I have learned a lot. I don't know if anybody else has been out there taking notes, but I will go back and watch this again in case there's anything that I have missed. But Jeff, we would like to give you and Theresa this opportunity to say any final comments that you would like to share with the audience.
Well,
thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. And since we got our picture, I think anybody, if they're in the right area, with the right equipment, they can get a picture too if they, if you try it. I know it's harder than it sounds, but I think anything's possible if you put your mind to it and just keep yourself prepared out there, and always be safe when you're out in the woods. Always be safe.
Well, don't go out with expectations too. If you're going to go out and you expect to get a picture or see one, it's more likely not going to happen. Just go out and have fun.
And enjoy yourself. I'm always cracking jokes to the wife, and it's just me and her out a lot of times, so they get a watching us, I'm sure.
There's sometimes we go out camping and I sit there and I blow bubbles, and I think they really like that. Yeah.
It's just have fun and be yourself.
Yeah.
Keep trying, keep pushing it. You'll find what you're looking for someday, I hope.
I agree. That's great advice. And we want to thank y'all for coming on here. I've always loved the picture you took. I've enjoyed hearing the story behind it, the stories that Theresa shared. Y'all have had some great experiences, and I know y'all have a lot more, and y'all can join us again at some point and share some more with us.
That sounds good.
Yes, that does sound wonderful.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences, and we hope that our audience has learned and been attentive, and so we just want to say kudos to y'all, because we think that you're doing great work. You're humble people, and we like surrounding ourselves with humble people. And
Definitely.
Larry, would you like to talk about? I love putting Larry on the spot.
He always puts me on the spot. I can't even remember the dates, Mark.
Well, I'll throw that out. Larry, have you ever seen a grown?
No.
But why don't you talk a little bit about the planning of our meet and greet at Land Between the Lakes in Kentucky and Tennessee, and the dates are October the 30th through November the 1st.
That's right. That's the dates. Y'all come on out, everybody. But either Shelly or Debbie is going to put a post on Beast that y'all can contact us either through PM or whatever to let us know you're coming, and we will send you the location. Our group camps got shut down because of the COVID, but they're still allowing primitive or semi-primitive camping. So we will still be able to go and camp, and we'll just have to follow the social distancing guidelines and all that stuff. And Mark will enforce that, right, Mark?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But we will have a post up this week that y'all can contact us, and we'll get y'all the information out, and that will be more of the info than I can give out, I guess. I don't need to give out much because we'll have the CIA and FBI and everybody else out there.
Well, I thought you were going to put Bama Murdoch in charge of all this.
Well, he'll be in charge of whatever you put him in charge of, I guess.
All right. We want to we hope that if you're in the area or would like to travel to the area, we would love to meet you and spend the weekend with y'all. So we will do whatever our guests want to do. If there's places that you have seen on our field evidence videos, we will be happy to take you out, and we really, for me, it's about spending time with people that have joined our group, and we're thankful for these people. And so it's something that I'm very much looking forward to.
Just like this show is about our guests, the meet and greet is not about us. It's about us meeting y'all. So we're looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And Beast TV would like to welcome all of our new Facebook members. Every week, Shelly and Spencer are adding people, and we just want to know that how much we appreciate you coming and joining our little group here. And there is a wealth of information that we have on our Facebook page, and you can go to the Files tab. Feel free to get to ask questions or anything. We just we're so thankful for all of our new members. And we also want to thank all of our new YouTube subscribers and our faithful followers. And be sure to check out our field evidence videos and check out our sister channel, Beast of the Woods. That's Larry's channel. We do these podcasts and these field evidence videos for you. So if you want to help us out, subscribe. Click the like button, ring the bell, and leave us a comment. Larry and I would like to thank Shelly for sending us the questions from the chat room tonight, and thanks to all of our moderators for keeping our chat room kid-friendly. Thanks again to each of you for watching, and we will see you again. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night night, footers.
This has been a Sawdust production.